Hey everybody, here we have a T37 match on Fisherman's Bay. Solo pubbing. I usually don't platoon in my light tanks, at least not anymore. And I've managed to land myself in a Tier 7 match, which is a pretty good arrangement for the T37. This thing is basically what the Chaffee used to be, except slightly bigger. And a tier higher, obviously with the hit points scaled up to match. Still a very strong light tank. Like the Chaffee used to have, and still has to an extent, it has excellent on the move gun handling. Its mobility is actually better than the Chaffee's used to be, but worse than the new Chaffee. Well, I say new, I should say reworked. First things first, I head up to this hill here, hoping to get some quick spots across, but I'm headed off by the MT-25. Now, of course, he counter scouts me, and I don't want to get popped by that thing, so I back out. As I do with my mediums, I'm going to be using the back slope of the hill as my safety net here, and hopefully nothing will push on me hard enough to negate that advantage. KV-85's up. He's a serious threat to my team, but unfortunately I can't get an angle on him without dangerously exposing myself. Pull back a bit and decide to shift more to the west, where the ground's a little flatter and I might have some better shots. Our teams spread out in a rather bizarre way. Our heavies seem to be unsure whether they want to commit to town or field. Town obviously is the place heavies really want to be going on this map most of the time, or one line. Most heavies don't have the armor or the mobility, or in fact lack both, to effectively use the middle. Middle is medium and light tank territory for the most part, and obviously some faster TDs like Hellcats. Now you can get heavies through the middle. The French auto-loading heavies, the AMX 50, 100 and up, they do really well in the middle if they're played properly, but the ARL, I wouldn't say so, and certainly not the Churchill. Now, I want to get this guy dead because he keeps respotting me and he's going to be a problem for my team, but he has got backup there. The Wolverine is firing at me, and so I decide to just let him go for now. Instead, I see that the Sherman and the 1S are pushing in on our west, and although we have a lot of tank destroyers there and they're actually putting out quite a bit of hurt on these guys, I'd like to go make sure that they win this flank. We get a tracking shot in the T-67 there, and then he goes down. Now, this was a little risky. In hindsight, the only thing that was unspotted was a Cheery, so I should have known I was safe to do this, but I was a little worried maybe the Wolverine would move west or there was something else overwatching these guys. As it happens, it was only the Cheery, and he was only half paying attention. So I dive in behind. The Sherman's still full health, so I'm going to take a hit off him. 2 if I can get it. There's the second. And instead of focusing him with the KV-1S here and aware of my presence, I start firing at him because he has a very big scary gun. I finished the KV off, somebody else took the Sherman, it was actually our Bishop, Artie, and then I begin trying to get shots into the Cheery while avoiding a situation where he can clip me. He pulls back into cover to reload. I take advantage of this, staying first in the low ground and then shifting to the right where the terrain masks my approach. He probably realizes I'm coming at him, but he won't quite know where from until I'm within proxy spot range, and by then I should have an angle on him. So I go up here to dive down on his side. Actually, he's come up here as well, and he's halfway through clipping somebody. So even though I carelessly track myself, I'm able to finish him as he is on about 8 or 9 seconds of reload. Unfortunately, my team isn't doing so well. We're trading pretty much 1-for-1 at this point. We've lost town, probably because our heavies didn't really commit to it as much as they should have. There's an M7 in amongst all our TDs and Artie down back. He does get cleaned up, but not before our Bishop gets counter-batteried off of his spotting. And that's a big scary train of heavies heading for our base. Now, we do have enough TDs up, certainly TDs with good enough guns to finish that line of heavies off, which is exactly what they're about to start doing. But for my part, I decide to harass the Wolverine while he's relatively unsupported. Thankfully he's a bad shot and only one of his shells hits me, and then there's a KV-85 back here. Now, I would have liked to just sit there and not move, so I would have accurate shots on his side as he turned around, but unfortunately he did start pointing his gun at me, so it would have been probably a bad idea. As it is, he does re-spot me. I actually didn't realise I'd been unspotted there. I thought I was lit the whole time. I get a bit cocky and pop up not far from where I was last seen, and then give him time to aim. That shot hits his mantlet. I thought that was him shooting. No, it was their Artie. So the KV-85 was able to finish me off there, but not before I could do about 2,000 damage to his team. Actually, I think it was more because I did some blind shooting and spot some people. Now it's down to our 3 remaining tank destroyers, a Stug, a T-67, formerly known as T-49, and a Stur Emil. The enemy have a KV-3 who has most of his hit points, and a T-150. The Stug is pretty much fucked. The KV-3 is right there, so he's either pinned or dead, depending what he does. The Stur Emil just drives straight into the open. I don't know what this guy was thinking. For a while he was screened from the KV-3, but he was obviously wide open to the T-150, and the enemy still had Artie up as well. And the Stur Emil is allergic to Artie, just like it's allergic to bad players who don't wait for their shot to aim in. Sure enough, the KV-3 finishes him off. However, the T-150 is spotted by him, which buys our T-67 time to get a couple of shots in. But the Stug also goes down, and so it's on our T-67 to carry this. Now if I just quickly hit tab, he's a new player. He's not the worst new player I've ever seen, but he's not exactly spectacular. I'm sorry, I am not good at the words at this time of day. And he's also having lag issues, as I guessed when he came in and crashed and then knocked the fence over. Fortunately, he's able to recover from them, and he actually begins doing everything pretty much right. Now, the enemy Artie could theoretically see him knocking shit over and guess where he was, but I don't know if he was even paying attention. The T-67 sticks to the low ground, swings wide of his target instead of driving straight towards it, pre-aims his turret in the direction he expects it to be, carefully pops up to spot his target. It's not where he thought it was, but he aims his shot, he doesn't snapshot, and he's able to kill it. He doesn't sit still, he immediately backs off, changes direction, and begins pushing east before moving north. I told him to do it, but I didn't need to, because as you could see, he'd already started turning that way before I'd even said anything. This guy actually was really switched on. He played an excellent match. At least the part of it I saw. I don't know how he was going at the start of the match. So he heads east and then north through town, so the KV-3 cannot see or shoot him. At the moment, the biggest problem is if he happens to get shot at by the enemy Artie, which he's risking by running over all those trees. If you run along the fence line or a row of trees, the Artie can accurately predict your speed and your position by the trail of shit getting knocked over, and I've actually had it happen to me. I was running along the fence without thinking about it, and Artie shell landed exactly on top of my tank because he knew where I would be. Typically bad Artie players won't be able to do it, but if you come across an Artie player who actually knows how to lead targets, look the fuck out. Anyway, the M41 has moved to his west, catches him by surprise, but the M41 doesn't aim his shotgun and he misses completely, which buys the T-67 time to just stop and get those shots in. Of course, He had the time to stop and aim. The M41 hadn't reloaded yet. Now, if the KV-3 had turned around as soon as the T-150 had died, he would have a chance at making it back to cap. Similarly, if he turned around as soon as the T-67 got in cap, he would probably still have time to get at least to the ridgeline and then shoot down into the cap and hope for a blind reset, if nothing else. Fortunately for us, the enemy KV-3 doesn't know how capping works, and even though we have a 15-odd second advantage on his team, actually about an 18-second advantage on his team, he he decides to go sit in our cap, and he stays there. He doesn't drive off. So well played to our T-67. Picked up where I left off after I carelessly drove in front of a KV-85's gun. And considering this guy's pretty new to the game, if he keeps this kind of performance up, he's definitely going places. As for my own game, it started out alright. The problem is I tend to get a bit overconfident and forget I'm driving light tanks, and so I do shit like that where I popped up in front of a tank that was already aiming in my direction. The T-37 has the old Chaffee's enormous capacity for damage. You can really wreak havoc on an enemy team if you are allowed to do so. If they're not paying attention, and if you know how to exploit that, you will just fucking trash them. It's very much a tank like the Chaffee used to be, and actually like the Chaffee still is in its own tier, where you can single out isolated heavies or TDs even several tiers above you and quite happily murder them. It's very mobile, it can fire on the move better than most tanks can fire stationary. It's a small target, it's very tall but it's very short, which makes it difficult to hit. If it's driving towards you, because it's so tall, it's easy to hit, but if it's driving perpendicular to you, the comparative stubbiness of the tank actually makes it a real problem. This is somewhat true of the T-69 as well, except the T-69 has the issue of being slow, comparatively speaking. The Chaffee now goes at like fucking 70 kilometers an hour or something stupid. So the T-69 does gain a little bit from its shortness, but not as much as the Chaffee and the T-37 and the M41 and the T-49 all do. The T-71 also gets it. Actually, all the American light tanks, I think all the way up the tree at every tier, are very short, stubby little tanks compared to the longer Soviet light tanks and the comparatively long Chinese light tanks. If you think of any of the Chinese or higher tier Soviet light tanks, they're basically just downscaled T-54s, so they're still quite large for a light tank. You know, they are squat to the ground, but they're quite long. The lower tier Soviet light tanks are a mixed bag. Some are short, some are long. It's not really an advantage in any regard, except it makes you harder to lead as a target if you are moving at any kind of speed. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the match. Thanks for watching. I wish you the best of luck in the field, and I will see you next time.